Things, friends. My parents grew up during the Depression, and I read once that people who did either later in life became very generous because they knew what it was to go without and they didn't want others to have to do that, or they became, let's say, overly thrifty and saved for themselves for fear that life could repeat itself and they would find themselves in great need someday. Fortunately, my parents went the route of generosity, though we did tease my mom quite often that she saved every empty Cool Whip container just in case somebody needed one someday. But I was grateful for their example of generosity, a lot of which I knew, but some I only came to find out after they had both died when I listened to people's stories. And so it was a real source of pride for me in knowing that they had helped others out, but in knowing that that was a lesson that they tried to teach us as well. I like to think that I'm a generous person, which is why I'm so embarrassed about a certain story when my great niece and nephew, twins, graduated from high school. And I called my other brothers and sisters and talked to them about, what are you going to give Kimberly and Matthew? And we all decided we'd each give money. So then, of course, the conversation was, well, how much are you going to give? And we settled on $50. I thought, well, I can do that. And so I sent out a card, separate cards and checks to both of them. Later, when I was balancing my checkbook, I noticed I had written out a check for $100, and I couldn't remember doing that. So when I researched that, I found out that I had actually sent Kimberly $50 and Matthew $100. And I was embarrassed at the thought that they thought I might have favored one over the other. And so I decided to call their mom. And when I called her, I just apologized. And I said, did the twins say anything about what they got from me? And she said, no, not really. They just said, well, Aunt Marla sent us a nice card and some money. And so I told her what I had done. I said I accidentally, only gave 50 to Kimberly and I sent 100 to Matthew. And I was thinking that maybe she would say, well, don't worry about it. I'll have Matthew give 25 to Kimberly, so it's 75 each. But she didn't. And so as she just remained silent, and so as I was trying to think of something else to say, I said one of the worst things I've ever said. I said to her, I didn't mean to be that generous. And I thought, as soon as I said it, I was embarrassed by it, and I thought, what a horrible, horrible thing to say, that you didn't mean to be that generous, especially to somebody that you loved. And I thought, thank goodness God has never said that God has never looked down on us and said, boy, I didn't mean to be that generous in forgiving her, or I didn't mean to be that generous in the gifts I gave to him, or I didn't mean to be that generous with how well their life turned out, or I didn't mean to be that generous with the love that I gave them. God would never do that. And we see in the gospel this weekend the difference between the wealthy giving money to the poor and the poor woman herself, where the wealthy can give large sums of money, but it's actually probably from their surplus. They didn't feel the loss of the money that they gave. And then the old woman comes along and she gives 2 small coins worth about a cent. And Jesus says, she gave all she had. She gave from her need, not from her surplus. That's the type of generosity we are called to. Not the few dollars that maybe we don't miss, not the extra time that we have on our hands to listen to someone or to reach out to someone, but to give so that we really feel having given a gift to others, to feel that we were generous in our finances, that we were generous in our time, but also that we imitated God and we're generous in our forgiveness. We're generous in our love for others. We're generous in our compassion, even for those we don't know. I'm determined to never think, let alone say, I don't want to be that generous, or I didn't mean to be that generous, but instead to follow the example not only of my parents, but of God, and say our generosity should know no limits.